Hey guys, welcome back. Now, back by popular request, it's time to do a crypto portfolio update. Now, the last time we talked through this portfolio was right at the beginning of this year. And so with lots that has happened, including this pesky mid-cycle top and long 6-month correction, we've got a lot of stuff to discuss. Firstly, quick disclaimer, remember, never just copy off one single person, as you never know the true picture. Just use this as one reference point of many, and then you'll know what's right for you. And so, in this video, we'll be covering, first we'll start off with some good news. Then we'll look at the one thing everyone needs to become an expert on before we start looking at portfolios. And then my crypto portfolio, how it's changed from the start of the year, the things I got right, the things I got wrong, and how I'm planning on navigating the rest of this cycle. Okay, so first up, before we jump in and start talking through the individual positions, let's start with some good news. And so, starting with some good news, and that is, in a typical 4-year cycle from the halving, the last 2 times we've had 18 months of a nice big bull market before we hit the peak. And so if history repeats, then this is where we would be right now. Just coming into September, and it means the vast majority of the gains come in the last 6 to 9 months, and so we are still early. So if you think you've made any big mistakes so far, the good news is that we still have time to put in some final tweaks if we need to do so, or for some people who would like to be rotating out of Bitcoin and into altcoins for the final stage of the market. As discussed in my last video, we could get a final flush out this month in September. Things could really start picking up by October, definitely by January, so no one really knows when it's going to kick off, but as of right now, today, September may be the last opportunity to get positioned for the final leg of the market. Obviously, there's a lot of assumptions here that this 4-year cycle is going to repeat, that we're not going to get any black swan events or pandemics. But for me personally, one of my main bets is that this 4-year cycle is going to repeat, and 6 to 9 months from now, crypto prices will be double or 3 times what they are right now. And this is a central premise for me and what I've built my portfolio on. Now, before we talk through individual positions, we just need to go over and get to grips with the risk curve. As everything we do as investors is all about how much reward we want, potential reward, versus how much risk we're going to take. And the idea is that there is no single one perfect portfolio. It's all relative, it's all on a spectrum, and it depends on several different factors. So someone who is 20 will probably have a different portfolio to someone who is 60 and thinking about retirement. Someone with $10,000 will probably have a different portfolio to someone with $100,000, which will probably have a different portfolio to someone with $1 million or $1 billion. Shout out to Michael Saylor down here. So everyone's personal situation is different. Everyone's portfolio size is different. Everyone has a different risk tolerance, different objectives, different financial knowledge. Someone who's been sat studying crypto every day for 5 years will have a different portfolio to someone who's just getting started right now. So the point is, this is why you should never copy off one single person. Every portfolio is going to be different, and you need to come to terms with where you will sit on the risk curve. Now, this will look different if you're invested into other assets as well. So cash would be down here. You're not really getting any return and you're not really taking much risk. Then if you're investing in bonds, you may now get 3 to 5%, depending on where we are in the cycle, and you're not taking much risk. You'll get more in stocks, but you're taking more risk. You'll get more in crypto, but you're taking a lot more risk. And then this also changes when we just look at crypto portfolios themselves. So everything is relative. If you just invest in Bitcoin, this is where Michael Saylor would be. You're still getting a pretty good return, but you're taking the least amount of risk in the crypto market. Ethereum a little bit further down, Solana a little bit further down, Avalanche a little bit further down. If you're a meme coin investor, then the rewards that you could get could be thousands of percent. However, you have a massive risk of completely blowing out. So understanding risk reward, getting good at the risk curve, this is a skill that ultimately determines our asset allocation, and it's something that the better we understand, the better the investor and the returns we're ultimately going to make. So jumping in, and this was the start of the year, and the last time we looked at this portfolio was the start of the year. And I just moved the remainder of my cash position into crypto, pretty much aside from having an emergency fund going all in on crypto. So the largest position was Ethereum, then we had Coinbase, then Optimism, Solana, and Avalanche. Now I'll talk about Ethereum, Coinbase, and Solana in just a second. So although Coinbase, yes, technically a stock because it's completely correlated to the crypto market, in fact, very closely correlated to Bitcoin. When Bitcoin goes up, Coinbase goes up a little bit more. When Bitcoin goes down, Coinbase goes down a little bit more. So it's very similar to an altcoin. So for all intents and purposes, I class this as an altcoin. Now, things I got right. The Ethereum position was my longest held position, so this was bought at a much lower price a few years ago. Coinbase and Solana have kept up with Bitcoin, and in up cycles it does outperform, so these have done really, really well. And this moves us on to the biggest mistake that I made, and it was to do with position sizes. So Ethereum, its market cap is about 300 billion. Solana is about 60 billion. Avalanche is about 10 billion, and Optimism is about 1.5 billion. So the biggest mistake was having an equal split in a lot of these positions. It should have been that the larger market caps should have had much bigger sizes, and the smaller caps should have a much smaller size. The biggest mistake being Optimism. With only a 1 billion market cap, this should have only been maximum about 5% of the portfolio. So that was the biggest mistake made, was putting the smaller caps as equal weighting to the bigger caps. Now, even in an up cycle, things can massively correct. So this is just the Bitcoin chart from the 2017 cycle, which showed that even in the big blow-off stage of the bull market, Bitcoin was correcting by up to 40% on several occasions. So right now, Bitcoin doesn't correct as much as this, but altcoins this time around still do. And personally, I can stomach 30%, maybe even 40% drops in my portfolio. However, let's just take a look at Optimism. So when I bought, it was roughly about $1.50, and it was pretty perfect timing, and it went up over 200%. All the way almost to $5, which was great. But since then, it's corrected. Let's just take a measured move from top to bottom by 77%. So even though I'm a fan of altcoins, something that can correct almost 80%, it reminds me that why historically I never really venture out the top 10 in crypto. because 200% moves to the upside, 80% moves to the downside, does not fit my risk tolerance. So this is roughly a 1.5 billion market cap. Let's just take a look at Avalanche, and it was pretty much the same thing. We went from about $20 all the way to $60, so absolutely perfect timing. But then again, this one corrected just over 70%. So if those two positions were much smaller, then that is something I could have easily handled. But having it such a big piece of the portfolio, 80% corrections, is a roller coaster that I don't really want to be on. Now let's quickly discuss Ethereum, Coinbase, and Solana. So one of the main things I look for in a crypto is its actual use cases, and it was CZ of Binance that put me onto this. Keep a close eye on actual customers. So this is active monthly users, people who are actually using the crypto, as it separates all the noise and people saying this crypto is going to do well, this crypto is going to explode, versus the ones that people are actually using. And if we look at this, number one by a mile is Solana, almost 30 million active monthly users. So this is a huge green flag. Then look who has jumped into position 2. It's Base, which is Coinbase's layer 2. So Solana, Coinbase, and then where is Ethereum? Well, Ethereum is Uniswap. It's also Ethereum. It's also Polygon. It's also Ronin. It's also Arbitrum. It's also Optimism. So the top 3 that I'm placing my main bet on when it comes to active monthly users is looking really, really strong. So I think it's still a very good decision. And when we look at developers, so again, super important metric, you want lots of developers, lots of full-time developers working on your chain. And what do we see? Again, Base has gone from nowhere, jumping into number 2 with almost 900 full-time developers. So this is looking really, really good for Coinbase, and it's also built on Ethereum. Solana is still quite high up, 600 developers. And then as for Ethereum, it's got the most number of full-time developers, but it's also Base, it's also Polygon, it's also Arbitrum, it's also Scroll, it's also Optimism. So it's dominating the vast majority of the developers as well. And a third reference point would be DeFi. So this is total value locked, actual hard-earned dollars sitting on these protocols. And it's a similar picture. Ethereum dominating number 1. To be fair, Tron is a very good option. It's been showing up in the active users. DeFi, so it's a solid option. Solana being next. I'm not as bullish on Binance as I was in the past. And then as for Ethereum, it's Ethereum, it's Arbitrum, it's Base, it's Polygon, it's Blast, it's Scroll, it's Optimism. Which is why my positions in Ethereum, Coinbase, and Solana, these are my big 3. So as of what my portfolio looks like as of right now, this is approximately it. So Solana has seen excellent growth, Coinbase has seen excellent growth, Ethereum has held steady. I did sell when Optimism came down to pretty much the price that I bought it at. I sold a big chunk of the principal into Solana, so de-risking the portfolio. In the big capitulation event that recently happened with this Japanese carry trade, I did pick up some ENS, Ethereum name service. What can I say? Hands up for being a bit of an altcoin junkie, but these are now much closer to the percentages that they should be. And I do think in the next 3 to 6 months, we're going to get a reversion to Ethereum. So Ethereum should be doing really, really well, which means Ethereum assets like Optimism and ENS should do really, really well. I have a side smaller bet on Avalanche, which is fine, but my 3 core main bets will be for the next 6 to 9 months will be Ethereum, Coinbase, and Solana. And this is more of a picture of where I want the portfolio to look like in a couple of months' time. So as you'll notice, these big runs in crypto, they happen very similar to waves. We have a big wave up, the wave then crashes back down, but it pretty much is a little bit higher than it was before. We get the next wave up higher, it crashes back down, but it's a little bit higher than before. Get the next wave up. So basically what I'm saying is that it's only a matter of time until we get the next wave up. And when we do get this next wave up, this is when I'll be exiting my ENS position, likely be exiting my optimism position. As mentioned, 80% corrections is just something that I just do not want or need to take. The money will be bumping up my Solana and Coinbase positions, and with Avalanche, if this ends up going up 200%, 300%, I will probably sell a chunk again into either Solana or Coinbase. So this is where it's at today, and in the next wave up, this is the portfolio that will be very close to what I'll be targeting for the remainder of this cycle. And one final point just to mention is that tweaking our portfolio, so buying a bit, selling a bit, buying a bit, selling a bit. Ideally, this is not something that we want to do as investors. This is typically how you lose money. Now, if you're a trader, then that's absolutely fine, but investors, you're better just to hold. So in the next wave up, once I've moved over to this portfolio, success will be not ever tweaking this again until I finally sell. I personally think it's a big mistake to be buying and selling a bit and tweaking this and tweaking that. That is how you mess up portfolios. So overall, I'm pretty much happy with the core decisions that I made. I'm very optimistic about the next 3 to 6 months. All things being well, I can see this doing spectacularly well. However, with it being altcoins, it does come with significant risk as well. Even though we are past the halfway point in the typical 4-year cycle, as the vast majority of the gains come in the last 6 to 9 months, we do still have a bit of time. Remember, everything comes down to risk reward, and there is no one perfect portfolio, only one that is right for your situation. Overall, I'd say I am really pleased with the decisions that I made. I think Ethereum and Ethereum assets should do really well over the next 6 months, reversion to the mean, and Solana and Coinbase should also continue to do really, really well. The biggest mistake I made was not putting the smaller cap bets in much smaller buckets, something that I'll be fixing in the next wave up. Now, I do think my personal portfolio is a risky portfolio. I am betting that the 4-year cycle will continue, that there'll be no black swan events or war escalations, and if so, I think it will do spectacularly well. However, if crypto breaks its cycle, there is another war or pandemic, then it will likely get crushed. With major upside also comes major downside. And that is something I'm prepared to take based on my personal situation. So there you are, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Now that is my portfolio. If you've got any questions or comments, simply use the comment section below. However, just remember to get rid of 100% of the comment spam and trading bots that plague YouTube comments. We are trying out the new SuperThanks Commenting system. So to get your question or comment read and replied to, or just to say thanks, then use SuperThanks below. And for now, just to say, if you did enjoy anything in the video, then drop a like, and a big thank you to everyone who does, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.